All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Monica Malampalli, Executive Director of the Alliance of Sleep Apnea Partners, or ASAP. Welcome to this webinar this afternoon. ASAP is a nonprofit advocacy organization very much dedicated to being patient-led and patient-focused. Our mission is to promote and advocate for screening, diagnosis, treatment, management of sleep apnea for sleep apnea patients' lifelong well-being. Today, we are speaking with patient advocates about how they navigated their sleep apnea diagnosis and treatment, and how and why they became patient advocates, and the vital importance of patient voices in both treatment and policies. I'm excited for this conversation because I'm a sleep apnea patient myself and have been a women's health advocate for many years. And I hope you are excited as well, because it's going to be a great conversation today. We also want to hear from you, the sleep apnea community, patient community. So we invite you to ask questions throughout the discussion today. Please use the Q&A feature button on your screen. Once again, I do want to emphasize, please use the Q&A button and not the chat feature. And this should be at the bottom of your screen. All right, let me introduce you to our panelists, all of whom are sleep apnea patients. First is Kathy Page. She's a co-founder and past president of ASAP. And currently serves as board vice chair. She focuses her advocacy efforts towards education on adherence to CPAP therapy. Kathy has previously served on the board of myapnea.org and Restless Leg Syndrome Foundation. She's a member of the American Thoracic Society's Public Advisory Roundtable. She has participated in several meetings held at the PCORI, NIH, and the FDA as a patient representative. Welcome, Kathy. David
Thank
Bishop
you.
is the CEO and founder of the Sleep Equity Project, whose mission identity and geographical location. As an advocate, David has worked with professional sleep societies, U.S. congressional staffers, and other organizations.
David, do you want to go ahead and take over what Monica was saying, since it's not working there?
Yes, I think her audio is
Oh, sorry about that. All right. I think something happened with my connection here, but never mind. David, happy to have you here today. Just to let you know, David used to be also on the board of directors for ASAP, so very happy to have him here today. Bob Stanton, some of you must know him already from the sleep, interacted with him before. Bob Stanton was working as a long-haul truck driver when he was diagnosed in 2002. He continued driving trucks until 2021. Bob experienced challenges and finding solutions to using CPAP on the road, and other drivers began contacting him for advice and help. Bob got involved with the American Sleep Apnea Association and co-founded Truckers for a Cause, a virtual patient support group for truck drivers with sleep apnea. Bob has presented at many sleep medicine conferences, co-authored commentary articles, and more. Bob's involvement with ASAP is as an individual patient advocate today, and his comments are his own. He does not represent any other entities or groups. Finally, Ray Merrill was diagnosed with obstructive sleep apnea and rapid eye movement behavior disorder in 2011. Ray is currently on the board of directors at ASAP. He began participating in clinical studies at medical research institutions in 2016. He encourages patients to participate in clinical studies in the drive for researchers developing and testing disease-modifying therapies. Ray is a patient representative with American Academy of Sleep Medicine's RBD Task Force, updating the 2010 clinical practice guideline for management of RBD, and serves as an up-to-date peer reviewer for RBD. All right, well, welcome everyone. We're excited to get started with our conversations today. So let's start off with, I want to start off with asking all of you. Kathy, let's begin with you. Briefly share your story and journey and how you navigated through sleep apnea diagnosis and treatment to becoming a patient advocate.
Well, the diagnosis of sleep apnea for me was a complete surprise. I had no idea, and it was not a good surprise either. I fought against the whole idea of using CPAP therapy for a long time, because from the start of my diagnosis, until I finally broke down and started using a CPAP machine, was fitted for a mask. I did not have one person explain to me why I needed to have this therapy. I had a lot of issues getting used to the mask, and the only advice I got from my sleep doctor was to wash my mask with lavender scented dish soap so that it would relax me to go to sleep. I have to say I'm mad, discouraged, frustrated, and still had no real idea of why I needed this therapy. That's when I decided that the only way I'm going to find out anything is to find it out on my own. And so I went out to reliable sources and learned more about it and found out that what I had was serious and that I wanted to share all of this information with other people that were probably having the same experiences that I did.
Thanks, Kathy. David, do you want to share your story with us?
Yes, thank you, Monica. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this panel. And so I was diagnosed in 2006, and prior to that, I had not heard of sleep apnea. I was not on my radar. It was not anything that I was expecting to hear. And actually, I have a sibling who was diagnosed before me, and that's how, by chance, I even started to pay attention to it. And my wife, for many, many years, was saying that I was having these types of symptoms. And I didn't ignore her, but it was not part of my consciousness that I would stop breathing at night. It wasn't something that I was even aware of, even though that's what she was describing. And we really didn't have the language to really put it in medical terms, what I was experiencing. So, on a family vacation, the power went out, and we went around kind of checking things, and I saw my sibling's CPAP, and that's what started me asking questions about that. And once I got diagnosed, I was shocked to hear that I had severe sleep apnea. And after that, it was really a journey for me to really learn, what was this diagnosis and what were the different components of this that really matched with my lived experience. And I was shocked to see that it was grossly underdiagnosed. And the more and more people that I talked to about it, I discovered that it was, something that is more prevalent than I had ever imagined. So, much like the panelists, I became concerned with, treatment options and trying to figure out how to really manage this really serious condition that had been so undetected for so many years. So thank you again for inviting me to participate.
And thanks, David. I think what you said is so important. I think a lot of people know of family members having sleep apnea, but never sometimes ignore that they might, themselves have the symptoms. So that's definitely a good point. Bob, you want to share your story with us?
Well, my story starts in 2002. I was working as a long-haul over-the-road truck driver. For a variety of reasons, I was diagnosed with sleep apnea, and my first experience in dealing with it was I got basically fired because having untreated sleep apnea is disqualifying to hold a Department of Transportation medical card. Well, I didn't know any better. So I then began a journey learning to deal with the administrative malarkey of having sleep apnea. I quickly learned it varied everything from the Americans with Disabilities Act to anti-idling and air quality regulations. I was kind of a feisty person, and like Kathy, I reached out to reliable sources and learned. And then I became the reliable source other truck drivers were calling and looking, and it kind of grew from there. But one of the points that I'm hoping to bring to working with ASAP and advocacy is a lot of the issues that affect patients may not be medical. It's things like how the TSA does inspections when you're flying with your CPAP. So it's a wide variety of topics, and there's not enough of us to get it all done.
Oh, thank you for that, Bob. And I think we need to start really expanding the conversations beyond and involving other people from other walks of life to engage with us. Ray, tell us a bit about yourself and your story.
Okay, and thanks again, Monica. Yes, I was diagnosed, as Monica mentioned, in 2011, and for several years prior to that, my wife would remind me I was snoring, and sometimes I would stop breathing, and that started becoming rather alarming, and I felt tired. So I decided to get a diagnosis, and I was rather surprised. I anticipated I probably did have apnea. So I was prepared for that. I was not prepared for rapid eye movement sleep behavior disorder. And this is a condition that is a neurological predecessor to a neurological condition later in life, such as Parkinson's or Lewy body dementia. So this is something that is an emphasis on comorbidities and sleep apnea. There are so many other factors, as Bob mentioned, that go into these health conditions. It's often not just one condition. And that's where, as I learned more about the CPAP, we're dealing with it as Kathy did, and I had my own stories of a couple years finally finding the right mask and right fit. But I decided to start participating in clinical trials and clinical studies, I should say, in New York and then in Boston. So I've become a research advocate with patients, encouraging them to be active in their own healthcare and also take action in clinical studies. Since there's no treatment for these neurological conditions, I'm hopefully will be in the front line of being a patient-ready group to participate in a therapy once it's identified for neurodegenerative conditions.
Thanks for speaking up, Ray. And I think we definitely need more conversations like this, hearing from patients about OSA and the comorbidities. Just for everyone, you can find Kathy's story and Bob's story on our website under the tab that says Patient Stories, so you can read more in depth about their journey. So what I want to ask next is, again, what was it, that one moment that made you decide that you wanted to speak up and advocate not only for your health and encourage others to raise their voice too, because that's where you made the transition to being a patient advocate. Kathy, let's start with you.
Well, as I said before, no one ever explained to me really what sleep apnea was, or the health issues that can go along with it if it's untreated. And I finally decided that I'm the only one that knows how I feel. I'm the only one. And with that, I need to learn what I can so that I can, when I go to the doctor, I know what questions to ask. It's really hard to know what you're dealing with when you don't even know what questions you should be asking. So I just feel like if we want quality care for ourselves, that we need to know the information that's out there, the good information that's out there, so that when we go to a doctor, we can ask questions and we can speak up instead of just allowing them to tell me that I needed lavender scented dish soap to go to sleep. I should have known enough to ask some questions and maybe to challenge him on that. So I just encourage everyone to learn what they can and to speak up for themselves.
Thanks, Kathy. And I again want to let our audience know that Kathy was involved in creating this sleep apnea advocacy toolkit in collaborations with the Society for Women's Health Research. And I think that's amazing toolkit because it allows women to be able to identify their symptoms and have the conversation with their doctors. So thanks, Kathy, for even speaking up, even on behalf, not just for yourself, for other women as well. So David, what was that one moment that was critical for you when you decided that you were going to step up and be an advocate?
Monica, I was really struck by how many people are undiagnosed with sleep apnea, and that really got me very motivated to start to get into advocacy and to, really try to figure out, what are those barriers out there to people getting diagnosed and successfully treated. And despite all the advances by our partners in sleep medicine, that number has not substantially gone down. And, the more people I spoke to in my community, the more I discovered this condition is not well known. So that really motivated me. And, through my own experience, just a great amount of information, that's needed for a patient really to advocate for themselves. From the terminology to the different ins and outs of the diagnostic process, and even awareness, and then finally in the treatment process, it's really a very difficult time for a patient to adjust to treatment. And the medical terminology of compliance or adherence really gets me very fired up, because it's truly a huge lifestyle adjustment, both mentally and physically, to adjust to treatment for sleep apnea. So, those are the things that really got me, very engaged in doing advocacy around sleep apnea.
Thank you. Bob, do you want to expand a bit?
Well, it's kind of funny. Mine wasn't one moment, but was lots of moments. Other truck drivers, having problems reaching out. A big communication tool with long haul truck drivers is the Sirius XM, satellite radio program platform. And they have a whole channel, which is all talk radio for truck drivers. And I would hear drivers calling in with questions, or even guests saying things that I knew were 100% wrong. So I just began speaking up and reaching out, starting that, and working with some really good doctors that helped mentor me. I got invited to help educate doctors about some of the practical considerations in treating truck drivers. That is basic patient advocacy. The whole rulemaking process. Truck drivers have lots of rules. It's learning that one simple letter or a couple of page comment submitted at the right time and the right place sometimes makes a difference. It is sometimes like banging your head against the wall until you stop and it doesn't hurt anymore. But I take the approach, I can't be mad about it if I don't at least try. So that's part of the issue in advocacy, is no one person has the time to read the Federal Register every morning. We need to form collaborations that if somebody spots something in the Federal Register, we can pass it around, and maybe a couple of page comment from the right people may actually fix something. That's advocacy to me.
Oh, thank you for that, Bob. Bob, can you just expand a bit about the Federal Register for people who may not understand what that is?
Well, any of the federal entities which are contemplating or making a change in regulations have to, by law, put those proposed changes out for public comment. So anyone, even an individual or group, can then submit written comments via a portal, regulations.gov, and the federal entities have to review and in most cases respond to the comments that are submitted. Now, a lot of times, the comments don't do any good, but once in a while, if you have a good, well-written comment backed up with some good, research, they actually change. I have had whole paragraphs of regulations changed based on one comment. So yeah, sometimes it's like banging your head against the wall, but once in a while, you actually get some good for patients.
It's amazing. Thank you for that. Ray, what about you?
Yeah, my journey was over a period of years as well. But just to explain, rapid eye movement sleep behavior disorder is actually dream enactment, where a person actually starts acting out their dreams physically. They're not paralyzed, which isn't the normal case during deep REM rapid eye movement sleep. Particularly in the early morning hours, but are actually acting out their dreams. I was kicking my feet and throwing my arms, hitting my wife, and I put my knee through a sheetrock wall, and I got hurt a few times. So I was asking my doctors and other health professionals, what is this about? And as I learned more about RBD and the lack of knowledge or common knowledge among many health professionals that I encountered about RBD, I realized I needed to kind of bring greater awareness of this condition because it is much broader than people are aware of, because most people aren't even aware of it. So, and it's a serious condition, and it's really the cutting edge right now of finding a treatment for neurodegeneration, particularly as we age. Our risk factor is age, but other risk factors is RBD is a leading biomarker. So if we can get a therapy in this stage, and that's why I'm such an advocate for participating in clinical studies, we have a shot at slowing or even stopping this process. And a lot of people hopefully will be saved from enduring the end of years in Parkinson's or in a dementia state.
So Ray, you don't have any scientific background, neither. You're not from the healthcare industry either. Was that daunting in any way to speak up and engage with the experts in the field?
I have a basic science background, but I'm not health related. So I just decided to read a lot of the research that was starting to be published. It is a very hot area. It's getting a lot of funding because it's so important, affects so many people with Parkinson's disease and Lewy body dementia, that I kind of learned myself from these research papers, and then got to interact with some of these researchers. I started getting invited to participate in discussions and conferences, and that was a real eye opener because there was so much even on different opinions amongst the professionals of how the process goes through the RBD stage and then onto these other stages leading up to a clinical diagnosis of these neurodegenerative conditions. But yeah, acting out your dreams is certainly a very serious condition, and I would encourage anyone who has that experience to seek some medical help. And if you don't, primary care physician often doesn't know about it, go to a neurologist or a pulmonologist and seek help.
Thank you for that. And so we have a question from one of our audience members, and I think I would love to hear from each one of you. Which group of healthcare providers, whether it's primary care physicians, sleep doctors, pulmonologists, neurologists, ultimately made your diagnosis?
Ultimately, it was a neurologist who referred me to a pulmonologist. As I described my condition, they referred me to have a sleep study. And the sleep study at the time in 2011, I thought, well, that's probably good because I'm pretty sure I had apnea, and the RBD was a surprise for me. So it really was neurologist first and then pulmonologist. But to this day, my primary care physician still has not had another patient with RBD, which is just incredible to me.
Yeah, no, that is. Kathy, how about you? Who made the first diagnosis?
I had a sleep study done, and it was the doctor when I came out of the sleep study. Usually they don't let you know what the results are for a couple of weeks, but he was standing there and he said, your oxygen levels went down to 86%. And I'm thinking, that's pretty good, and then he proceeded to tell me, no, that was not good, and sent me to another sleep doctor. So it was during a sleep study with a sleep doctor that I was diagnosed. Not that it did me a lot of good, because I never saw that sleep doctor again. So.
But did you have a hard time convincing your primary care physician to, or did you just directly go to a specialist?
I was referred directly to a sleep specialist, but my primary care doctor has been phenomenal in following up on things and asking questions and listening to what I have to say. Sometimes she'll ask me, well, what do you think? And so I will tell her, and she always follows that up with looking at her own information. But with my primary care physician, I've had excellent rapport with her.
Right. David, how about you?
So that's a really great question. You know, the first sleep doctor I had, I didn't know to look at his other medical specialty. My second sleep doctor is a pulmonologist, but yeah, I don't think many patients know that, you know, sleep doctors as a subspecialty, and you know, they have that primary specialty, which could be neurology, internal medicine, you know, pediatrics, you know, for children, you know, just a wide gamut of experience that they also have in other specialties. But I had no idea even to look at that first doctor and what his primary specialty was. But the second one is pulmonologist.
Bob?
My original diagnosis was by an MD, board certified in sleep medicine. Over my journey, I've had several doctors, but currently I am being treated by a pulmonologist who is also board certified in sleep medicine. In part, unrelated to the sleep apnea, I've had 2 pulmonary embolisms. So he's been a good mix, you know, with both the pulmonology and sleep medicine. So that's my story.
And
So,
Monica, I'd like to add just one thing. I'm sorry to interrupt. But I have a periodic limb movement. I don't have restless leg syndrome, but you know, lately I've been considering seeing a sleep doctor who is a neurologist to kind of look at that a little bit closer. So, you know, for some patients, your care might evolve over the years, and you might need to look at, you know, maybe considering other sleep doctors with other primary specialties that may benefit, you know, ongoing care.
so you all had to go get a sleep study done. Is there any way else your primary care physician was able to say you may have this condition and then let's send you for a sleep study? Or is that typical that everybody has to go through a sleep study to get diagnosed?
I think to actually be diagnosed, you need to have a sleep study done. I don't know that for sure, but I have not met anybody that has been diagnosed that has not had a sleep study done. That doesn't mean that there's people out there that just on the basis of what their doctor says. But I think usually in order for you to be able to get the equipment that you need, you have to go through a sleep doctor, and normally they require you to do a sleep study.
Yeah, so that's been in my experience as well. I think that now there are home sleep studies, so that it's made it a little easier. You don't have to go to a sleep clinic that qualifies for the diagnosis, but that diagnosis needs to be made so that you can receive insurance coverage for the CPAP machine.
Let me just, I think, a little more clear. So anyone of you had a home sleep study testing done, or was this all in the clinic?
Well,
Yes, my initial. Go ahead, Bob.
my diagnostic sleep studies have all been in lab, but some of the advocacy work I've done has been testing home sleep studies. So I've lost count of the number of sleep studies I've done.
In my sleep
David?
studies, initially it was in-lab studies, but I have had a number of home sleep studies just in my journey with using a mandibular advancement device. So I've had both in-lab and home sleep studies.
And I was initially diagnosed in a sleep lab overnight. It was a split night study, I was told. Once they confirmed my sleep apnea, obstructive sleep apnea was severe, then they continued the study and observed my REM sleep behavior disorder. And I was told those results the next day, actually. But I have had a follow-up home sleep study when I changed a pulmonologist, and they just wanted to confirm that for continued insurance coverage.
So for Bob and Ray, was that how easy was that to use, do the home sleep study? Was that easy? And you've had a chance to compare that to in clinic?
I've only had one home sleep study, and it was certainly easy enough for me. So it's a lot easier than going to a sleep study, a center.
Mm-hmm.
again, I multiple home sleep studies, and it really depends on the specifics of how it's measuring. You know, like some of the peripheral arterial tomography, and please excuse if I didn't get the medical lingo right, some of those versus ones with respiratory resistance bands and thermistors. Unfortunately, a lot of my home sleep testing work is actually on how to falsify a home sleep study. An issue in trucking is truck drivers don't want to be diagnosed. They would love to have the results of a home sleep study saying, I don't have sleep apnea, so I don't have to deal with all the rest of the administrative malarkey. So there are some pretty simple things in how the home sleep studies are administered to safety sensitive positions like truck drivers, pilots, some train crews, and U.S. Coast Guard master mariners that needed to be worked in. So that's part of the patient advocacy is as a patient, okay, we don't want these studies to be easily falsified. And it was some simple things going back to the medical community and the manufacturers. These simple things give better reliability to the results, making them more useful to the patient in the long run. A move in trucking was to require all truck drivers to undergo an in-lab sleep study because they're very hard to falsify. But an in-lab sleep study, minimum 1,000 to 1,500 versus a home sleep study that can be done for a couple of hundred. As a patient advocate, if we can make it that patients can use the least expensive option, to me, that's a win as a patient.
And we still definitely need to come back and talk more in depth about those issues, Bob. So thanks for bringing that up. We have a couple other questions from our audience. Were any of the panelists offered any alternative treatment options other than CPAP? And the comment also is delighted that we're raising the awareness of these issues. So patient advocacy is important. So let's start with you, Kathy. Were you offered any other alternative treatment options other than CPAP? Oh, you're on mute, Kathy. Yeah.
Sorry. No, I was not offered anything else. I had not even heard of anything else. And I did this last year at the ATS conference speak to the medical community on the need for options for sleep apnea patients. There are things out there, but really there's not anything that works as efficiently probably as a CPAP machine. I know that some of those alternative options have problems that people can't use them, but there are options out there. But no, bottom answer is no, I was not offered anything different.
How about you, David?
So I was not offered any other options, but I've always been motivated to look at the new advances that are being made in the sleep medicine community for treatment. So I educated myself about the mandibular advancement device that brings your jaw forward, and learned a lot of information, and also did research around surgery. And so I've had what's called a UP3. It's a really long name, but it's basically thinning out your soft palate. So I did undergo that procedure, and so I'm always looking at how to, minimize the closure of my airway. But it was not anything that I was offered. I really educated myself and went out and advocated and sought that treatment out. And I continue to look at anything that's on the horizon that I think has that's really effective for patients. But we all need to be very educated when we're thinking about other solutions besides CPAP, because there are some downsides to these interventions that are out there now.
And that's such a good point, David, because I think there's a lot of innovation happening in sleep apnea space. And I think one of the things ASAP wants to do is also focus on this innovation and see what information we can share with patients and encourage them to try out these different treatments as well. Ray, so tell us about, again, were you offered any other treatment? Or was there any, let's just talk about OSA, and of course, RBD doesn't have anything at the moment, right?
No, I was not offered any other treatment. Although, like David, I kind of keep an eye on the research. And matter of fact, I just saw a commercial about a device that they are promoting. I don't recall the name of it. Someone might, but that's intriguing. And it could be apparently implanted and help with sleep apnea. But I was not offered another option.
Bob?
Yeah, that would be the Inspire device
Oh, yeah.
that's being heavily marketed.
I've actually, one of the advantages of being a patient advocate was at one of the conferences I presented at, the ProSomnus, which is a manufacturer of a mandibular advancement device, was offering free impressions and devices to key influencers. So I got a free impression, and they fabricated an oral appliance with one of the special Brabon compliance chips that would be needed for a truck driver. Unfortunately for me, I have very severe sleep apnea. So while I tried the OAT, for me, it wasn't successful. But one of my advocacy points has been the problem that for truck drivers right now, the guidance is to be able to use an oral appliance, they must have a documented failure on CPAP. Well, that doesn't make any medical sense. Patients also run into the same problem with some insurance companies. The insurance company won't pay for the oral appliance without a documented failure on CPAP. So these are all some of that administrative malarkey we all need to keep banging our heads against the wall trying to change.
And so that brings up another question then, Bob, is why can't people do both in combination? I mean, why it has to be one versus the other?
Joint therapy, is a medical option. It's just for me, my sleep apnea was so severe that the OAT didn't really do any good. From a truck driving standpoint, the regulators just aren't familiar enough with the OAT technology. CPAP provides compliance data, which from a safety sensitive position, and the compliance chips are relatively new. So it's just all part of the advocacy and education component, teaching the regulators this is what the new technology is.
I think some of the problem is that not everyone looks for what's out there. If you're an advocate, you are looking for different things that are coming up on the market or that are supposedly going to help. But not everyone does that, or not everyone knows how to do that. The second part of that is trying these different things cost money. They're not free. And sometimes if you try one thing, insurance companies are not going to let you try something else. So there's that factor too.
That's such a good point. Let's see, we're getting some more questions here. Ray, this is for you. How has your rapid eye movement disorder been treated?
Matter of fact, I did participate in updating the clinical guidelines that is published on the American Academy of Sleep Medicine, AASM.org. So I would suggest for anyone who might be experiencing dream enactments and kicking and frailing and throwing yourself and hitting your bed partner, to go to that website and look at those clinical guidelines. The initial suggestion is a over-the-counter melatonin sleep aid. So that was the initial, the first offering and the safest, and that can be taken depending on your dosage. You can ramp that up over 2 to 3 milligrams and just see if that works first. If that doesn't work, then there are more powerful sedatives, and that's what I'm taking, Klonopin or clonazepam, which is a prescription medication. But that's what it took to settle my enactments down so I can have a peaceful night of sleep. I'm still experiencing my REM, but I just don't act out my dreams. But I still have the dream behavior disorder.
And definitely need more options here. Again, anybody in the audience has more questions for Ray, please feel free to email us and we'll forward those questions to Ray. We have another question from the audience member. What is a good step for a patient to become an advocate for themselves and for others? How can a patient find out about clinical trials and get involved in them? So who wants to go first with that?
Well,
I'm going to jump in. Join ASAP. Get on the mailing list. Get on the email list. Join the Facebook group. That's one of the things about advocacy is that it's the information sharing. So the first step is join the groups. Okay, sorry. I'll get off the cheerleader soapbox.
For clinical trials, you just go to clinicaltrials.gov. If you just Google that, and there's a very extensive web database for clinical trials. You enter in your conditions or your symptoms, and then pop up several options that you might have given your demographics or your where you're located in the country. So that's one option. And also major nonprofit organizations with these advocacy groups representing, say, Parkinson's, Michael J. Fox, they have an extensive database that also of clinical studies and trials.
Thank you for that. Let's come back to discuss a bit more again your experiences here. Kathy, what made you decide to form ASAP? You're one of the co-founders. And then what is that one thing you would like to really see happen based on all your experiences?
Well, I have to tell you, I didn't set out deciding to form anything. There were just several of us that were together that had been part of another organization. We all had the same questions, the same problems, the same need to find answers. And so this group of people decided to put ASAP together. And we wanted a site that would cover as much information as we possibly could, and to also try to let others know that there's no question too stupid. There are no stupid questions. So, and it doesn't make any difference if you ask the same question or the same question is asked 10 times. 10 people need that answer. And that's why we started this, to try to build as much as we can for information for people. And we would really like it to become a one-stop site. So anything that you needed to find, you would find on there. Or if you couldn't find it on ASAP's site, we would find it for you. And we wanted to be sure that we were a reliable source. And I think that we have done that. The one thing I would like to see happen is a lot more people join us as members or as advocates.
Thank you, Kathy. And again, I encourage people, please sign up for our newsletter. Again, join us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and engage with us. And happy to connect.
Yeah. What Bob said. Yeah, what Bob said was good. Thanks, Bob.
All right, David. David, this is a question for you. So tell us a bit about your nonprofit. And again, what made you decide to form that nonprofit, and what would you like to achieve through your work?
So, Monica, I've been in national patient advocacy around sleep and sleep apnea for 5 years. So my esteemed colleagues on the panel have been at it for much, much longer, and I really enjoy speaking to them and learning about, the things that they've been, working on. So our community is very robust, the sleep patient community and sleep apnea community. And from the beginning, I really was wanting to focus on underserved populations. And I include in that, minorities, women, children, older adults, people with disabilities. Prior to starting my nonprofit in January of this year, I served on the board with ASAP and had a wonderful experience and really developed friendships while doing important work to advocate for patients. And I really wanted to have a bigger impact locally. And so I decided to start Sleep Equity Project here in my own community in Chicago. And I really hope to achieve larger numbers of people who are socioeconomically challenged to be diagnosed and successfully treated for sleep apnea, which is no small feat. We all know it's a huge endeavor to embark on. And there's little awareness in the African American and Latino community. And I really want to make an impact with larger numbers of people being diagnosed.
Well, thanks, David, and good luck to you. I think you're doing some really great work, and we hope to see more coming from your organization. Bob, you've already talked about what it means to be a patient advocate, and you've discussed some of the issues that you're passionate about. But can you tell us a little bit more about the value of partnerships? And because as an advocate too, you can't do everything yourself. Tell us a bit more, give us some examples of even, looking at,
I'll just build on something David said. I know truck drivers. I know the issues for truck drivers. I know what to advocate for them, but I have absolutely no idea what the issues are for minorities. I'm not a woman. I can't speak to women. So the value is we need to find that cross-pollination to work with each other. An issue that may be important to truck drivers might also turn out to be important to minorities and might be to women, but unless we talk to each other, we don't know. So that's where, again, that's why I'm passionate and excited about what ASAP's doing. Is it's bringing together all these different diverse groups to try to work together.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. Really, I think partnerships is so key for ASAP too, because that's the word alliance in our name. I mean, we want to be able to engage not just with the folks in the sleep field, but also outside of the sleep field, and how can we spread the message and engage with others. Ray, let me ask you a bit about your engagement with the NAPS community, because that's something you've been pretty involved with. And again, as a patient advocate, clearly there needs to be more people, more patients with RBD speaking up. So what do you want to say to that?
Yes. Yeah, I'm participating through the Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston, this North American Syntheopathies Consortium, which is a really focused effort on RBD research. And Michael J. Fox also has a significant effort as well as an international community of researchers. But here in the NAPS in North America, I'm a patient representative and I participate on a committee called RIO, Recruitment, Outreach, and Education. So I can express myself and give my opinion from a patient's perspective on how to reach people and how to better educate the general population, and more specifically those people who have been experienced a dream enactment. They don't know where to go or get help, or even through the sleep centers, that they might not have all the answers themselves, but at least we are a good resource. And we are collaborating with other researchers and collecting a group of people so that to register on the website, so that we have a ready group of people to participate in a clinical trial once a therapy is identified with the FDA and approved for human trials. Right now, we're all waiting to participate with for that human trial.
No, absolutely. All right, let's see. We have a few more minutes. And again, for the audience members, if you have any questions, please let us know. This is a question, again, I want to ask everybody. And I think we've already covered a bit about why patient advocacy is important. But again, how can patient stories help? And then just give me a quick sort of response. And that's one of the things we're doing at ASAP, or also highlighting patient stories. How can we build up these patient stories? And some of us share similar experiences, some of us share different experiences. But again, why are these stories so important?
I think it's important for us to have the patient stories as another way to have our voices heard. But these stories can also help the medical community understand really what we are facing, because we become a person to them and not a patient. I know I've spoken 3 different times at the American Thoracic Society conferences in front of medical community as a patient, and I was the only patient speaker there, and they all really seemed to not enjoy what I had to say, but learn from what I had to say as being a patient and not just a face. You're a person there. And I think that makes all the difference with these patient stories.
How about you, David?
So I think patient stories are really essential because when you think about it, there's around 6 million people diagnosed with sleep apnea. And as we all know as patients, not all 6 million stories are happy stories or stories of success. And so we have many peers who have not been able to adjust to treatment. And, telling of those stories is really, really important to inform both the medical community, about what are the barriers that are still there that need to be tackled, but also, encouraging other people who are struggling, with adjusting to sleep apnea, that the support is out there amongst your peers. We really, want to support people. And I think those patient stories, imagine if we had 6 million patient stories, about sleep apnea and other related sleep disorders and comorbid health issues that go along with it. Think about how powerful that would be if we had that, to really influence a lot of systemic change that's needed to help support patients. It would be really powerful.
Yes, it definitely would be. Bob, what's your opinion?
Building on what Kathy said, one side that we're advocating with is the medical community. The other side is the regulatory community. And that's where those patient stories are critical. The entire Philips recall debacle, which can be the topic of an entire series of webinars. And I believe, Monica, correct me, doesn't ASAP have a survey out? Getting data on those patient stories gives us the tools and leverage to make the arguments to move forward on our advocacy issues. So that's where those patient stories come in. And in fact, people that want to get involved with advocacy, a great place to start is just filling out some surveys. Writing a letter to your member of Congress. It doesn't need to be a form letter or something specific, but just getting on their radar, learning who the administrative aid that covers medical issues is. Those are all parts of advocacy, and part of what ASAP can be is sort of that educational tool house of, this is a place to start.
Absolutely. And then again, we encourage the audience members to share your stories. And just to back up what Bob said, ASAP also plans to address the Philips Respironics issue in our webinar series, so please be on the lookout for that. Ray, again, what's your input on the importance of how patient stories can
I think they can be extremely powerful and also very important, particularly for people who to make sure that they don't feel like they're alone, that they can actually relate to the individuals that are sharing these stories, that they might not even know that there are other people out there experiencing sleep enactment, throwing themselves out of the bed, and they might be embarrassed to talk about it. This is a way to listen to real people having these same experiences so that they can actually relate to the situation and actually become their own best patient advocate with their own physicians or specialists and friends and neighbors, whoever they come into contact with. To be you have to be your own best health advocate, and patient stories are very powerful to get through to people.
No, absolutely. And I think, again, I think there's a stigma associated with sleep apnea. We all can, I think, relate to that. And I think that's why it's even more important people speak up and talk about it so we can actually do something about it. All right, so one final question for everyone, and this is something I want, I'm looking for like one message you want our audience to take away today regarding advocacy. Kathy, you want to go first?
Well, I would just like people to understand that we're all traveling a really rough, rocky road. We may not be traveling the same road, but at some point those roads might intersect. And when they do, we can support each other, we can learn from each other, and we can make that road a little smoother as we go forward.
Thank you. David?
I think my message would be that, you know, sleep apnea is a very involved condition, and that there's so much to learn that really, you know, relying on your peers to go into these different areas and really teach you something about what their experience is really valuable. And, you know, the more that we support each other, the more that we learn about our condition and all the different ways that it presents and all the different symptoms that we're experiencing, you know, that makes, you know, for a better experience for all of us. And so, you know, really, you know, treating each other as peers and also a resource, I think is really important.
Bob?
Feels like you're pounding your head against the wall, and it feels so good when you stop. But if you stop advocating, you never make any progress. So it's just a matter of you keep it up and you keep banging your head against the wall, because once in a while you actually win something and you do some good. And that's what keeps me motivated. You know, once in a while you do something good. I may do a presentation and teach a bunch of doctors about something. And then the next week I get a call from a different doctor asking the same question. I'll never teach, you never get it out to everybody. But if I don't do that presentation, well, I can't get mad at I can't get mad, you know, so you just keep banging away at it and join with other people. I saw a couple of good contacts that are in the participants. Work with other groups and other people. We're all in this for the same thing, educating and advocating.
Absolutely. And change takes time. So we have to keep at it, work with one another. How about Ray? How about you, Ray?
You're not alone. So reach out, be your own best health advocate. Even if you don't become a super advocate out there at the national level or state level, even at the local level, even within your circle of friends and contacts, be an influencer for your own health.
And on that note, I mean, at ASAP, we totally believe in self-advocacy, and we are doing our best to provide you tools to be, you know, to do self-advocacy. So come engage with us. If you have any questions for the panelists, reach out to us. And again, I want to thank all the panelists for your insights and this engaging conversation today, as well as sharing your experiences and advocacy journey. So once again, a pitch to share your stories. Email us at info@apneapartners.org. Whether you want to share your story, your experience, you have questions, any issues you're having that we might be able to help you with. As I mentioned earlier, Breathing Room is an ongoing virtual series to engage with the public to discuss topics related to lived experiences, importance of patient engagement in advocacy and innovation. So I hope you can join us again for the next episode of Breathing Room in November. Please be on the lookout for the announcement and the date, where we'll focus on the impact of the FDA recall of the Philips Respironics devices on the sleep apnea community. We're going to explore in depth about what went wrong, how we can improve the process, and what could have been done better. And if you have not signed up for our newsletter yet, I encourage you to please do so. You can also stay connected with ASAP. Again, our email address is info@apneapartners.org. You can follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, X, and Instagram, as well as YouTube. We will make the recording of this webinar available to you soon, so please feel free to share this with your friends and colleagues. Again, thank you all for joining us today, and see you again soon. Goodbye.
Thank you.